Hi, so we are from Jersey in the Channel Islands. Welcome to sunny Jersey. We collectively are the Blonde Plotters. Individually, we are Gwyn Bennett, Kelly Clayton, and me, Deborah Carr. And together we have talked at literary festivals, on the radio, at libraries, and different talks and things like that. So, ladies, do you want to introduce yourselves? Gwyn?
Yes, I shall go first. Okay, super. I'm Gwyn Bennett. I am an author of crime mysteries and psychological thrillers. I've been writing all my life, but we'll get into that at some point. And my latest book has been a psychological thriller, which is Dead End, but I've got several series out, which is the Harrison Lane series, and also the Claire Falls series. No, that's not Claire Falls series. See, started already. Brain's gone already. It's Sunday, so I can't remember what I'm saying. What's she called? She's called Saskia Monet, and I do have the Claire Falls series as well. So yeah, I have a identity crisis when I try to remember all my different characters that I've created. So you can see what the problem is.
Don't we all? And Kelly?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I'm Kelly Clayton. I write various genres that are here behind me. I write police procedural. I've got four of those out. I've got a cyber thriller crime, Cyber Sisters, and that's very modern, contemporary. And I do historical as well, sort of historical, Regency, but very much with a twist and with a bit of suspense added into it. Pretty much like you guys, I've been writing for what seems forever, but seriously over the last few years. But unlike you both, I've got a 5 day a week day job that feels like it's 7 days a week sometimes. Gwen, you're slightly less hours than that, and Deborah, you're full on focused.
Yes, I sort of am constantly, I think I escape into my books. I write I shouldn't write 7 days a week because actually people do need time out. But I do tend to because I probably have no life. But we all love doing it, don't we? So yes,
Yeah.
I write historical fiction as Deborah Carr. Two of my books are USA Today bestsellers, which is exciting. My most recent one, The Poppy Sisters, was actually an Amazon First Reads last August. And I also write contemporary fiction as Georgina Troy. That's one of the books. I don't know. My most recent one of that one is this one. That's a different series to this other one. Yes, and I think I don't know about you, but I love writing the different genres, moving from one to the other. I think by the time I finished writing my historicals, obviously, I write generally about war, First or Second World War. So obviously war is there's nothing lovely about war. It can be very dark, and I love the dark bits. And I find that by the time I've written, also there's obviously a lot of research for historicals, as you especially know, Kelly. And by the time I've finished writing an historical, I'm actually really happy to then write one of my contemporary romances. A lot less research, obviously, and it's much lighter. But then by the time I've written one of those, I'm very happy to get back to the heavy stuff again. How about you, ladies? Why do you write in different?
I suppose for you, that's a bit like a palate cleanser as well.
That's a very good way to
you get
describe
rid
it.
of that. You're modern. You've gone. So it's not just that you're going into sort of more modern. It's like you don't have that darkness within it. They're not thrillers, for example.
Yeah.
Your modern ones. So you literally are changing that completely. I think for me, I read. My reading is really eclectic. So I pretty much read across the spectrum.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who's read as much as you. I mean, I just can't get
read as fast as you.
Or as fast.
I
like
love,
what takes us a couple of weeks to get through, you've done in a day.
Yeah. Well, do you know, when I started reading really, really early, my elder sister, who sadly passed away many, many years ago, she was quite young, was a voracious reader. And we lived in a small town in Scotland, but it had a really big library. And we used to go there every week. She would take me. And then my mum died when I was 14. So even then she was sort of taking me along. And I think, I was allowed, say, 8 books as a junior, maybe she was allowed 12, and we'd take out the maximum books we were allowed. And it was a bit naughty. I'm sure I ended up reading stuff I should not have been reading at that age, because we used to read each other's books. So of course it was lots of different stuff. You know, in those days it was like, you know, sort of, you know, hardcore science fiction, it was Regency romances, it was thrillers, it was, you know, adventures, it was, you know, all of the big, you know, sort of epics and that. And I've kept that up. You know, I read massively across the spectrum. So for me, when I think about a story, or a story comes into my head, it could be any genre. And I think you're right on the research. You know, we all know that if you're reading a book, the last thing you want, especially if it's a historical, you don't want to be thrown out the story.
No.
When you suddenly, something jars, you know, it's not quite right. And it's amazing the amount of effort, you know, that you do have to put into that. But I actually quite like that as well. Right now, I've got a sort of fantasy type one that's going on in my head. So I'm doing a lot of thing about myths, symbols, witchcraft, you know, lots of different things. And then sometimes I have to remember, actually, can you stop researching and actually go and write something?
Yeah, we're waiting.
Yes, we're waiting for one of your books, aren't we? That's another thing that you do, Kelly, I think, is that, sorry, Gwyn, is I can be 30,000, I have an outline for each book that I write, and I can be about 30,000 words into it, but I still have to really get myself into it. When you tell us, oh, I've had this idea, you then tell us the story, and it is almost, it's so fully formed, it's incredible.
Yeah, but the problem is,
yeah,
psychologically, I feel that I've already written that.
Oh.
So I need to kind of get the effort going, because it is so sort of formed, and it will still change. You know, as I do it, I'll still sort of veer. But the big points, it's like those big points, they will not change. I'll just change how I get to them.
Right.
But
yeah.
you, Gwyn, I might be a quick reader, but blimey, are you a quick writer, Gwyn?
Unbelievable. and it's incredible, and a clean writer. I've never met anyone like when like we've read each other's sort of like early drafts. Mine are, I don't know, I have to add so much. Yours is, it's so clean. It's I love them. Fantastic.
Like one draft, whole stories there, everything.
But I think that's years of being a journalist, though, isn't it?
I've been a journalist. So basically, I've spent years being particularly broadcast journalist, where you have to write tight and you have to write to deadline, and you got to do it quick and make sure it's good and accurate. So that's stood me in good stead. And a lot of my very visual. People always say, "Oh, I can see it. It's like a movie."
Definitely.
And that's that goes back to my background. And you know, you talk about palette cleansers. That's why, I mean, I do a lot of series. That's also why it's quite nice to do a standalone book occasionally, because you get to sort of step out and just do something completely different. And although a lot of my books are very emotionally driven, not from me, I mean the characters, they are also that's kind of the theme across all of them, is the depth of the characters and the emotions that go into them.
And they're very clever as well, I think. The subjects that you write about must take an awful lot of research as well.
They do take a lot of research. There's one,
because it's not something you would pick up and think, I know it's that. Yeah,
he's a right clever clog. So that when you're thinking about developing characters, try and think of characters that don't know anything. It's a lot easier to write. But the smart ass is like Harrison. It's you then have to do all the research for him, which is becomes more problematic.
Oh yeah, you definitely want the character. I mean, how do you sort of, I remember some people have asked me, you know, where'd you get your ideas from? And I remember asking a couple of authors. I was at a conference and I was sitting in between two authors, both books I used to enjoy. Saying, you know, where'd you get your ideas from? Because both wrote books with characters with like unusual jobs, or they weren't your everyday. And one of them said, and I've never forgotten it, she said, which is what I did for Broken Faces, my first historical I wrote. She said, I think of something I don't know much about that I want to learn more about. And there's like your research, you really, it's encouraged to get into the research. And then I think, what really would fascinate me to read? And she sort of put the two together and took it from there, really. And I did that with one of my books, my first book I did. I think it was getting into how do you write a book, basically, and how do you put it together and that sort of thing. But yes, it's like coming up with ideas, isn't it?
I think real life for me, I think that goes back to being a journalist again. I always find that actually real life is often stranger than fiction. You just wouldn't believe some of the things that happen in real life.
That is so
and I like I like all of my stories, unlike sort of, well, I mean, I like reading fantasy. I've read some fantasy, but my stories, I like to be kind of like embedded somehow in reality so that the reader can feel like they can relate to them. So I'll often put in historical things, like real life things that have happened, just as a backdrop to a story so that people can relate to that character's life.
Yeah, no, that's one. And Julie, Kelly, sorry, how do you write? I mean, I write historical fiction sort of mostly, but I'm comfortable in, as I say, First and Second World War. How Regency, that I find that would find that very difficult because it's that much further back, I think. You know, that you don't have you have movies of it, but you don't have you know, news films of it, and it's not documented by photos in the same way.
Yeah, I think part of it is that, so if I think about it, the first Fortune's Hostage, which was the first sort of Regency / romance / suspense, because there's like a murder mystery through it that I wrote. It was sort of a homage to my late sister. Those kind of books. She liked the sheer escapism of it, but she loved the historical elements. And it's different things. One of the most important things is word usage. It's what you say, because you have to write it, you know, so there's very few contractions when people speak. They won't say, I don't. They would say, I do not. There's more formality, you know, in the language. And then the next level of that is it's a love story with a mystery. So that could take place in any age. You've got that. People will still have the same emotions. How they react to those emotions, how they deal with them, and what happens will very much be tied up with that historical context. But I suppose for me, like so many people, one of my favourite books ever is Pride and Prejudice. And I think, you know, it's going back to that time very much. I mean, I deliberately set Fortune's Hostage in 1813. Now, that's around the time Pride and Prejudice came out. However, they do think that there's no sort of set idea of, you know, knowledge of when she actually wrote that. So it could have been, I think they say, anything from 1795 up until 1812, 1813.
Because it was actually originally called First Impressions, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the whole thing was, you know, it was groundbreaking. And it's, you know, it's something I've reread many, many times. But it's also, you know, that research then goes into little things like, say, someone's going from London and you want some, you know, and the next scene, you want this to be in one of the counties. Well, I've got a book that has maps of all of, you know, the UK between around about that time. So you can go back and you can see villages and names and, you know, Google is your friend, you know, how long, what kind of carriage, what kind of, you know, transport would you be using? How long would it take you to get where you're going? Would you have to stay overnight somewhere? So, and all of that could take you hours.
Yes.
And it's one sentence.
Yeah.
One sentence.
That is so true. I remember once spending, I mean, hours, probably half a day or more, trying to find, because there's a doorknob. I mean, for heaven's sake, I obviously had something in my head, couldn't get it right, and I got in such a state. And then I thought, I just won't put that bit in. But it took me hours to click. Yeah. I don't have to put that bit in, but I do have to actually get this book written. And it was you can actually get a bit lost in it all, can't you?
But also, I think there's a danger. I mean, we all go down rabbit holes with our research. There's a danger with some authors to try to show that they've done all the research.
Yes.
And then again, that pulls you out the story
You've
because
got to have a
it's just
feeling of it, a
packed off the
sense of
fact
it, isn't
too
it?
much. Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be flavor, it should be background, it should be
Yeah.
factually correct about
Yeah.
what's going on, but don't kill the story by putting too
No,
much
because
fact in.
it's not supposed to be a textbook. It's supposed to be
Exactly,
fiction,
yeah.
isn't it? And it is supposed to give
Yeah.
that sense and that enjoyment and
I think it goes back to as well, Stephen King, who says, you must kill your darlings.
yeah.
And it's not just your characters,
Yeah.
it's the words, it's what you have put into that, it's what you've learned. And it is truly like, yes, you've learned all that information, but you only need to drop a snippet in to give that authenticity.
Absolutely.
We're all like
powerful. That. So much more powerful.
And we all do it as readers. And I mean, that's a great thing. We're such huge readers as well, that if I need to fall into that story, be completely immersed in it, I want to sort of come out from it blinking a little bit, because I'm coming back into this world and thinking, oh, how did that happen? And it's those things, whether it's wrong word usage, whether it's you think, oh God, I don't, there's too much description here or something. And
use of words unnecessary to try and
I hate too much description. I want to know what happens.
Action.
What happens next?
And I think
do you know,
in modern books it's more like that as well. I think readers have changed. I think readers want
and also I think though it's every reader is unique. Because I know when my first of the police procedural, Blood in the Sand, when that came out, there were people saying, oh, but this is set in Jersey, which is such an amazing place, I would have wanted much more description. And then someone else was saying there's too much description, and you think you people, you can't please everyone, and we all like different things. We've seen this before. I remember messaging you guys.
We remember you messaging us, raving about the book.
Raving, which we won't mention, but raving about a book I'd read, that I'd started reading it on the Saturday. I did nothing. I think we got a takeaway that night. I just kept reading. To the extent I had my Kindle propped up while I was making breakfast on the Sunday morning. I couldn't even see the Kindle. Tears were rolling down my face. It was such an amazing love story to me, such an amazing story. I was like, oh my God, you've got to get it. And you did. And you were both like,
and we started it. We were both like,
what is this? I didn't like it at all.
Really didn't like it. What's she going on about? Yeah. But isn't that the amazing thing?
That's the point. Yeah.
We're all
different. You can't please every reader all the time. And some people, there's best-selling books that I love, and best-selling books that I just think, what's all the fuss about? And it's just your own, it's your own individual taste, isn't it? It's what's important.
It is. And some actually take others more. I remember you, Gwyn, one of your, or probably is your favorite book, All the Light We Cannot See. And you have said, I don't know how many times, you even gave me a copy of the book, said you have to read this. I tried, I think 3 or 4 times to get into the book, and I just couldn't. I even tried the audio book. No, I can't do this. And in the end I thought, it was coming on, I think the series was coming on Netflix, and I always like to read the book before I actually see it. And I started to thought, no, and it took me a while to get into it, but once I got into it, brilliant book.
It was one of those books that you had to get into, because I was started reading it thinking, not sure this is going to lead anywhere, and then
fantastic,
grabbed you. Yeah.
But the best one I've read like that was I Am Pilgrim, where
I've got that.
The book is like this size. And the first third of it, I was like, oh, I don't know, that there were so many different strands and elements. And I thought, I don't know where I am with this. And then I remember Googling about it online and seeing all these comments from people saying, keep going, just keep going. It is the most amazing book ever. And then I got past that first third, was completely transfixed with it, and the ending was amazing, because then you understood why all of those strands were there, because all of this spaghetti junction came together in one point. And I thought, wow, that's a book, that's a story. In falling into it, loved it.
I mean,
reading
sorry,
I was only going to say, no, go ahead. Well, just thinking, that, we're sitting here chatting like this. We have a Facebook Messenger chain that is the history of us, because we're messaging on that every single day. But I guess maybe be good to talk about, how we met. 2016.
Was it 2016? Yeah. Yeah, Gwyn, you had actually
yeah.
Jersey Writers, wasn't it? You had invited.
Yeah, so
that's how you guys. So you guys knew each other beforehand.
Yeah, so we'd been going. Deb and I had known each other 18 months, 2 years beforehand, because I set up Jersey Writers, which was a
brilliant
support group for writers. And I was basically getting people to do talks and things, and then you, Kelly, you
we were in
talks.
Yeah, we were it was Rachel Abbott, the author who lives in Alderney, had come to Jersey. I'd gone to a publishing course she had run the year before, maybe 18 months before that, and you were helping organise this. It was being run in Jersey, so you were there. I was there in the audience, and basically I'd been stalking Debs online, okay? Because
a nice shed.
I'd realised I did something, I put in something like Jersey author of that, and she came up. So I was looking, who's this Jersey author in Jersey? I like her. She's got a potting shed she writes in. She's interesting. And then I was there and I thought, that's that writer. So I thought, I'm going to go up and say hello. So I went and introduced myself. Debs obviously thought there was some serial killer coming up. And then it sort of grew from there. We decided, then it was a Jersey Festival of Words, and we went for a coffee, and we went for a pizza.
Yeah, we went for pizza.
Yeah. And by the time we finished the meal that evening, by the time we each got to our respective homes, you'd set up our domain name for the website.
We were there on
the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't take long, did it?
No, it didn't take. We are doers, that is for sure, isn't it? You decide something, get on with it. Yeah,
absolutely. But I think there's been huge strength, because essentially when we got together, and Gwyn had the idea for my VLF, which was the online literary festival that we ran for several years, is that we were meeting at one point sort of every Saturday morning at the Digital Hub, and we were there ostensibly to move forward my VLF, which we probably did for about an hour, but for the sort of 2.5, 3 hours before that, we would yabber and yabber about everything, but about our writing careers and any blockages we were having and what was going on and any issues, whether it was agents or publishers or anything like that, and talk about it together. And I think, so it's a friendship grounded in those, I think, sort of initial shared experiences.
Yeah. Common goals and things, yeah. And now we just yabber non-stop. We'll go out and we just talk for hours and hours, and I don't know where the time goes.
It's fantastic. It's really, really fantastic. I think you need that writing support, but you do need good friends. And
we understand, don't we?
We do understand. I mean, anyone else, if I sat and start talking, you see people glazing over, because I think people might obviously love reading books, but unless you love writing books, it's not obviously that interesting, I guess. So it's so nice, and also we understand, like you say, the pros and cons, and when it's good days and bad days, or if you're struggling with something, we just get it. You don't have to explain it, because we all have the same experiences at different times.
Yeah, and I think it's the general support, because writing by its very nature is a solitary occupation. You're sitting there with your screen tapping away. You have doubts on whether your story is going anywhere. It was quite interesting, like we met for lunch a couple of weeks ago, and Debs, you were talking about an idea you had for a story, and you were like, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. Anyway, this is what it is. This is what happens. And the two of us were like, oh my lordy.
Yeah, and I did send it straight off to my publisher, but she's actually away in New York at the moment, working from the New York office, and I haven't heard whether she likes it or not. So I don't know if she hasn't looked at it,
You
or
better do.
just, yeah.
Oh, you have to write it
I'll
anyway.
write it anyway. Yeah, yeah.
Because to me, it had so many of the things I love. You know, it's got like there's a bit of sort of a supernatural element to it. It's got time slip. It's got that modern, the historical setting. It's got a love story. It's got to be done.
I'm desperate to write it, actually, and I'm working on a first draft of something else. So it's that I normally don't have a problem getting on with stuff, but this is really, really pulling my brain. Whereas I think, no, I've got to focus on this because I'm literally only 25,000 words in.
That's when they're the best. Yeah, when you can really focus.
Want to get on with it, but I just don't have time because I've got to deliver this other book I'm supposed to be getting on with. Yeah, but I think it's all. A lot of the time, it's the next book is the most exciting one, probably.
Yeah, well, I forget as soon as I've done a book, because I don't think people realize the whole process. So when a book actually comes out, you could have written it months ago. So you've completely moved on from that book.
No idea who they are, what they did. Yeah,
I know you have to do interviews or people ask you about it, and you just try to remember. Just trying to remember which one it was, because you, like with my series, I'll have probably written another one in the series since. So it's trying to remember which, where.
Yeah, what happened. I remember we were doing something. You were interviewing me for something, Debs. It was really funny. I think we were talking about, or it was you, Gwyn. I can't remember which one of you it was. We were talking about Fortune's Hostage, the first of my historicals, and you asked about one of the characters, and I'm thinking, who are they? I don't know who they are. What? Oh, I know who they are. Because it's gone. You've moved on. You're in other worlds, you know, in other lives. And it's, you know, I remember another really favourite author of mine is the hugely prolific Nora Roberts, who also writes as J.D. Robb. And I just love her overall attitude, you know, to it as well. Like she was talking about writer's block or something, and she said, it's a job. You put your ass in the chair and you write every day.
There's no waiting for the muse to strike, is there? I mean, that's you never.
Yeah, and you know, she said as well, I can't fix a blank page. So write something. It doesn't matter. You can change it. You can, you know, you can. I mean, I was talking to someone from my day job. I was traveling on business, and I was chatting to someone, and they were saying, "Oh, you know, I've got a great idea for a book, and I don't know where to start, and I've got this story." And I said, "Just put the story down." And they went, "Oh, but you know, I haven't worked." Just put the story down. Just get it out there. Because the more you think about it, you know, the more you'll sort of add, you know, into it as you do there. But Nora Roberts, what I was going to say there was she had said that someone had been asking her about, you know, some of her earlier books where she had like, she was with a different publisher. They were more sort of category romance ones, but really, really huge bestsellers. And someone said, "Oh my goodness, you know, do you ever think about those characters and da-da-da?" And she said, "No. I think about the characters I'm writing about." And she said, there are so many characters that you've gone through, and they belong to that book.
Yeah, they do. And you live in that world in your head when you're actually writing the book, don't you? And then it's almost like purging them from your brain. That's what I feel.
Actually, that's actually a very good way of putting it. And I think if people probably, I don't know about you, but if people actually could come into like my studio and hear the way I talk, sorry, that's you know, to my character, it's like, no, you can't do that, and no, you must do this. I talk to myself all the time.
I think you're talking to the dogs, Debs.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I've always got one of them.
Well, I do. And it's like though, it's I think they get into your head, and so I do a lot of my writing before I go to my day job. So I get up about 5:30, 6, come into the study right away. I like that, and I think it's really good for me creatively, because you're kind of not 100% awake. You're maybe a little bit, and I don't know if it triggers something in your subconscious, but I honestly have been writing something times thinking, oh, no way, because it's coming through so quickly. I'm not even having the conscious thought about it, and I'm kind of getting surprised myself. And that's because by that point, that character genuinely is on their own path, and it might not be the one you've written down to begin with.
I love it when you go back to like a first draft or something you've done. You've been thinking, oh, I don't think it's very good, and then you read it, you think, oh, that's actually
Yeah,
quite good. I'm quite enjoying this.
and you kind of feel as
You
if
can't remember writing it.
did I write that? Did I
Yeah.
write that?
Yeah. I remember
It's
once
great.
reading through one of my books, I think it was probably Broken Faces, years after I'd written it. I was obviously, because that's self-published, so going through checking the edits or whatever. And I was quietly reading it in a different room, and I got to the end and said, that was a really good book. And my husband Rob said, oh, what are you reading? I went, it's one of mine. And he said, well, don't sound so surprised. It is so surprising. And I think for me, the best thing is, because especially when the first 30,000 words of a book takes, I really have to write myself into a story. But when you're in that zone and you don't know time is notice time passing, don't you find that is the best time? It's like it's not even conscious. You are living it, seeing it. Oh, that is the best part of
It's
writing.
my 6,000-7,000 word days where I love, where I've just been, and then you just,
I've
it's
done
all
6,000 words once in my life, and I felt so ill. I was so exhausted. To me,
Yeah.
a good day is 4,000, 4,500 is brilliant.
Yeah.
So, but you are so fast. You are so fast.
It depends on what you're writing. It depends on where you are on the story, and you know,
Yeah.
if it's all action, it can come fast, can't it? Whereas other things take a bit
Yeah, I
more
guess. But
thought
also, obviously, your fingers move very, very quickly, obviously. Yeah. And your brain.
And I'm there typing with 2 fingers.
Oh no, I taught myself a touch type at a very early age.
Yes, I'm glad for that. I was a PA for years, so I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
Well, what I've started is I think they use it in schools to teach children how to type. And basically it's little exercises. So you have to, you know, you're starting off with, you know, sort of your QWERTY keyboard, and you're doing maybe middle row, ASDF, whatever. And it comes up with SSDF, and you have to hit that, right? And if you don't, there are these little animals, little monkeys and things holding on to balloons, and if you don't hit the right one, they start coming down, and they're going to just, so you're getting, so you're really panicking, thinking, I don't want to do
There's
this.
loads of things online now to teach you, but I remember I did the classic typewriting course at college, I think, and when I was in my teens, and I what I did to practice, I used to sit there like a complete nutcase, typing out as people were talking to me. So as you're listening to me now, I'm typing, working out where the letters are on the keyboard.
Yeah,
and that's how I drummed it into my brain.
Yes,
So
because I would not know where anything actually is on a keyboard. I wouldn't even know. It's just automatic.
Yeah, it's just automatic, isn't it? Yeah,
it is, isn't it? And my mum, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's why for me, what I'll do sometimes, especially if it's at the start and I've got the entire story in my head and I just want to get it down, is I'll just dictate it.
I was going to say,
and you know, I mean, I started off with, I think, dragon, and I do have a bit of a Scottish accent, and so sometimes it can be a bit interesting what words it comes up with, but I find that now just doing it into Word is absolutely brilliant. It works really, really well.
I've never managed to get into doing dictation. I think I like to see the words on the page.
Do you know what? For me, it's like when I'm doing it, sometimes it's like I'm only typing what is I see in my head.
But you tell us the story all the time.
So I can tell it. Yeah,
you're always telling it orally to us when we meet up.
I've only actually dictated one. It wasn't the whole book, but it was probably about half the book. And it was because I was very behind on my deadline, and it was much quicker to dictate and get it down. But then, of course, I had to edit it because it, as you say, it picks up what it thinks you're saying rather than what you're saying. So that was a bit of a
but actually it's really funny. I don't know if I can find it, carry on, but I had a memory pop up on Facebook last night, and I must have been dictating at the time, and it came up with something like I don't know, suddenly the carrot jumped out of the bushes.
yes. Yes, it's like that predictive text, isn't it? When you send a message
Mm.
or something like that. I'm forever sending my children the strangest sort of words, then having to correct it because it's like, but they actually do say, Mum, we always know when a message from me, when I'd like go out with friends or something, if I didn't have my glasses and I'd get a friend to actually send a message or reply to something they might have sent, they'd say they always knew when it was from somebody else because there weren't any errors in it. I thought, that's
Oh,
yeah. Well, I suppose we should wrap it up. It's been
yeah.
lovely chatting to you,
No,
ladies.
it's been great.
There's one thing
As
we can do
always.
is talk. Shame. But so if you've enjoyed watching this, please subscribe to our channel and click the thumbs up. That helps other people to discover the channels. So that would be cool. And yes, we will chat again.
And maybe sort of pop in the comments whether it's readers or as writers, there's anything you'd like to cover at another day.
Brilliant idea. So
Yeah,
thanks very
lovely.
much. Lovely.
Always a pleasure. Now time for
Brilliant.
dog walkies.
Yeah, off we go.
I may even go and
Bye all.
write. Bye.